Dark Destinations.
These may be end times, night creature. Why would a few more casualties trouble me?
Because their blood will join yours.
A radio drama anthology.
You are wrong.
How you figure? Every merc on Mongo is hunting you down.
Not you. Your partner. He said I didn't have a ray gun.
Full cast performances set in the haunted corners of the globe.
Darkness is coming for you.
That's the fear that haunts me. Sleep!
Dark Destinations by Father Malone at weirdingwaymedia.com.
Weirding Way Media.
Welcome back to Midnight Viewing. I'm your host, Father Malone. Welcome back to Midnight Viewing Anthologies Attack. Antonio Lepore is on location filming. That's true. But in his stead, we have a very, very special guest. This is an actor and a director and a producer and of late an author. Mr. Christopher John Fetherolf is, if you bought any Airwalks in the 1990s, it was probably due to this fella. Chris, why don't you introduce yourself? Say hi to the Midnight viewers.
Hello, Midnight viewers. Yeah, that is true. I had a nickname of Big Toe there for a while due to that Airwalk commercial. Well, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. You kind of covered it. That's me in a nutshell. Thank you so much.
Hey, man, you know, that's not nearly enough of the facets of who you are and what you are in this world, but I'm happy to give them the Cliff's Notes versions. Remember Cliff's Notes? You and I do probably.
Yeah.
But the kids today don't.
Do they even have textbooks today? I don't even know.
I don't know. I'm so out of the loop, and I don't care to know. And that's the problem. I'm the problem. Chris is on board tonight for a very special episode. Is this our first comedy anthology? Oh my God, I think it is. And got to start at the top, I guess, because we're doing Monty Python's The Meaning of Life.
Tired of questioning your own existence?
Not much happening at the moment, is there?
Now, in a special limited offer.
Don't stand there, Corbin! Oh, you've never seen the undergod before!
The Meaning of Life can be yours. Yes, it's all here. In a new, unabridged translation by Monty Python.
I mean, what's it all about? Philosophy. Oh, that sounds wonderful. Is that a sport? No, it's more of an attempt to construct a viable hypothesis to explain the meaning of life.
Including why you were born.
And what are you doing this morning? It's a birth. Wonderful what we can do nowadays.
What do I do?
Nothing, dear. You're not qualified.
And why things don't always work out.
The mill's closed. We're destitute. I've got no option but to sell you all for scientific experiments.
What dreams mean.
Wouldn't you like to know? Makes you think, doesn't it?
Why people who don't speak your language want to hurt you. Why you like sex.
Sex, sex, sex. Where were we?
How to talk to waiters.
Good afternoon, sir, and how are we today?
Better.
Better?
Better get a bucket or throw up.
Where diseases come from.
Hello, can we have your liver? Fat? You know, it's reddish brown. It's sort of,
Yeah, I know what it is, but I'm using it.
And why we've all got to go sometime.
This is Mr. Death.
I am the Grim Reaper.
Well, that's cast rather a gloom over the evening, hasn't it? They haven't said much about the meaning of life so far, have they?
Don't let the meaning of life pass you by.
You ever wanted to know what it's all about?
Oh, is God really real?
Let Monty Python explain it all for you. In the film that proves, once and for all, that there is death afterlife,
Shall we take our cars? Why not? Yes, why not?
the meaning of life.
Is there heaven and hell? Do we reincarnate?
Chris, before we get to all the shenanigans of Monty Python's, their history, your history with them, our history with them together, I don't know. Tell me about the book you've just written. Is it in any way involving dragons?
It does. That's a very good question. I think you've done your research. Yeah, it's called The Last of the Giant Fire Lizards. It is lizard versus wizard. It's a magic flinging, fire breathing pile of fun.
Why in 2024 have I never heard lizard versus wizard before?
I know, right?
That's astounding. Good for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, no, it's
a book about whose point of view are we taking here?
Well, this is kind of the fun thing with it. And I don't know, other people that are smarter than me will probably be able to answer this question better, but I don't know of any other books or movies or any kind of, pop culture where it takes the perspective of the dragon.
Oh my God, Dragon POV.
Dragon POV. The whole
I'm
time.
already sold. By the way, Chris, in addition to the lizard wizard thing,
yeah,
why hasn't there been a popular entertainment told from the dragon's point of view?
Good question.
Totally insane. Please continue. What's the story about?
All right. So we're with the dragon. Starts a little tragic. The dragon loses a bit here. She loses her home, her mate, all because of this dirty ass wizard. By the way, can we swear on this show?
Oh, fuck yeah.
Oh, Lord. Fucking I don't know why I'm restraining. Yeah.
Go to town, baby.
It's Zephyr Ignitus. When her home gets destroyed, she goes on the warpath. She goes out for revenge. She's got to hunt down this wizard and take him out. But along the way, she makes some friends. So she gathers her little crew of dragon warriors together, and they go out, find some strange new lands, destroy some cities, and have some big fire-breathing magic battles.
You know why no one came up with lizard versus wizard? Because they weren't thinking from the lizard point of view. I like the way you think, man.
Yeah, you're right.
Honestly, I want to watch some wizards burn.
Well, you could listen to them. I do the audiobook as well.
Usually it's the dragons whose time has passed, but let's reverse that.
Yeah.
Make it positive, I think, right?
Yeah, for sure. No, I want a dragon hero. And it's fun too, because you get to play a little bit with, in our world, in our human world here, we see dragons as this big, terrifying monster beast. In her world, she's the great protector of all things. And can't even really understand why people look at her as a terrifying thing. She's, hey, man, I'm here to help. But no, the wizard's got to kill. The wizard's got to take out the dragon. So
this wizard's name.
What's that?
What's this wizard's name?
Zeohazen.
Okay, I'm going to write that down. I'm going to write a letter against him.
Yeah, no.
I'm going to write a letter. Speaking of how old we are, I'm going to write that down.
Barbenheimer, right? You got to choose. What are you on the side of the lizard or the wizard?
I can't wait to read this book. You said you got an Audible version?
There's an audio book out there, yeah. And if you do Kindle Unlimited, it's free. You can just go on there right now, look up Last of the Giant Fire Lizards, and start flipping pages.
Oh my God, that sounds so wonderful and easy. And where else can we get this book?
Amazon's the place. It's exclusive. Amazon and Audible.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't even need to leave your computer or your phone or however you're listening to this. The device in your hand can get you a dragon story from the dragon's point of view right now. Just stop what you're doing and read that.
Keep this podcast open on its own little window. But
no, you can come back to this, man. This is pre-recorded. They need to live that live. You know what I mean? Stop and pay attention. Our shenanigans will wait.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Chris Fetherolf and I met back in 1995, 4.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
We were we were projectionists at the New Wilshire Theater in Santa Monica, California, between 14th and Euclid Street.
You were my mentor.
Oh, no, I don't know about that. I know we showed movies together, and that was a lot of fun. 2-screen house, then owned by Landmark Theaters. It's now a bicycle shop.
I thought shoe shop, but yeah, no longer a movie theater.
As
are most of these cinemas here in LA now. A lot of them are going.
Oof. I had driven past it and saw that there was a bike shop in there, and I thought, and this was the last time he came to Santa Monica.
Yeah, for real.
It really hurt.
Yeah, it does.
That was a beautiful theater. It was an old vaudeville theater. The fly space was still back there. There was a backstage area. It was an immense amount of fun.
That backstage area, I don't know if you remember this, was filled with old canisters of old films. We had an original print of, I believe, Alien back there. We had some Charlie Chaplin shorts. It was nutty.
We had the Seven Samurai.
No, did we? Why did we never screen that?
Oh, we did.
Where was I?
You were yet employed. This predates you when we were sort of still putting the theater back together, like,
right.
And they were loading those prints in. To be young, I don't often get nostalgic, and I'm not being nostalgic. It was a good time. I'm happy I'm living right now, though. But a great moment in the sort of right before the fall of 35 millimeter to be absolutely reveling in it.
Yeah.
And touching it and feeling it. I miss the taste of celluloid.
I do too. It just hit me the other day. I posted something silly, plugging the book, and some of my old lives, and one being a projectionist. And I went, I bet I could still thread up a simplex. Could probably do it blindfolded. Just
absolutely, that never goes away.
Yeah.
Remember this trick? There's a hair in the gate, and then you would wet your fingers, put a drop on one frame, and it would pull the hair out.
Yeah.
Hey gang, hey everybody listening. When you see it in the old movies, the cartoon, they put in the hair in, like, what is the hair? Like, that's how you got rid of it.
Yeah.
Little projectionist tricks of the trade. There's still some projectionists. The new Bev still has 35.
Yeah. I think Man still has it, still has a platter. I think they got the digital as well, but there's not a lot left.
No, I know back in Boston, not necessarily the Brattle. There's a Coolidge Corner still does 35 millimeter out there. I know that. I think we now, no, we don't have one here in Las Vegas, but we do have a theater that is now showing second run, or, calendar, let's call it, like once a week at least. So that's a step in the right direction. And here's the thing. In rewatching this movie, I once again fell in love with 35 millimeter film grain. The type of stock they're using here in England in 1982, there's just something so specific, and you just want to grab a hold of it, right? Like,
yeah, it still feels, I mean, there's a datedness to it because they're doing, some kind of period bits throughout, but it does still feel incredibly vibrant and, I mean, gorgeous. It doesn't.
The cinema. Oh, fucking A. The cinematography here. I know I'm having every technical in the world. The cinematography here is fantastic. The filmmaking in general is fantastic. But what I want to know before we sort of dive into the nuts and bolts, because I'm sure we both have a lot to say, because this is just one of those movies.
Yeah.
How did this movie first come into your life? How did Monty Python first come into your life? And in addition, meaning of life.
Right. Yeah.
I know that's tough, but
it is. I mean, there was a period of my life in high school. So this goes all the way back to, some of my first introductions to comedy was Monty Python. For me, it started Charlie Chaplin, a little bit of Stooges, but by the time I'm 12 or 13, Monty Python takes over everything. I want to say it was Holy Grail. That must have been my in.
It's most people's entry-level drug, yeah.
Right. But there was I had a buddy, you remember, I'm going to give him a shout out. Mr. Jeff Mattis, you remember.
My God, of course I remember Jeff Mattis.
We grew up together, and that was one of our first real big bondings. We memorized sketches from Flying Circus together and would quote them on the way back to school and, all that. So it's hard to say what really was the first thing. It feels like all of it all at once was just
right.
But,
I know, it's such a flood, because once you get hold of any of it, you want all of it. And there was so much out there.
Yeah. And then then going through some of the, rewatching something like Meaning of Life, you really see that, like, I mean, the style is just clear. That, they have some tricks that they do over and over again that are incredibly funny, and they're aware of, how do we top the trick and twist it? So there's I think Meaning of Life is kind of this buildup of what they do to, our sketch work, at least, or I don't know. You could just see the history through it. But what was the question?
The question was, how did the first come into your life? I think you kind of answered it. You told team getting into Holy Grail there.
I think they were just they were who we wanted to be. And that comedy became our comedy. And I still see it. And I mean, you'll see it when you read the book. You'll see a lot of it in there. You go, that's
I
perfect.
can't wait. No, I always got that bit of a vibe from you anyway.
Yeah.
A Python leaning.
Yeah, for sure. What was your into the hole?
It was Monty Python's The Meaning of Life.
Oh, it was this? Oh, goodness.
Well, this movie came out in 1983. By 1984, I was 11 years old, and this was on cable. And I watched it a lot.
How many times have you seen it?
I could not calculate.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, sincerely. It's one of those. And you know what's funny? This is a phenomenon I've been noticing lately because I listen to a lot of podcasts and a lot of movie podcasts. And sometimes people are like, oh my God, it's crazy how many times I've seen this movie. It's like 20 times. And I'm like, 20? Like, if I fall in love with a movie, it's going on a loop.
Right.
I won't know where it begins and I end, you know?
Right.
Luckily for me, PBS was running Flying Circus.
Yeah.
So I was able to leap right into that. And then by then I was renting videotapes. And so what's funny is my next introduction to them film wise was, and now for something completely different, which is just their first film. And it's just straight filmed versions of the sketches they had already performed on television.
Right.
It's a real cheat of a movie, but it's always good to see just a little bit something different, just like a whole different take sometimes.
Yeah. And a touch of higher production quality, you know, a little more money for the.
Yeah, but what's funny is looking at it, it seems hampered because it's not them directing. They have an outside director. So it still feels straight and television bound, even though they got a higher budget.
I think it was the same guy, wasn't it?
Yeah, from the series.
I think he did a lot of the Flying Circus, and then I think he did it now for something completely different, which so that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
But so they didn't really get the reins until Holy Grail. And then it was Jones and Gilliam battling each other to the death. And that movie is gorgeous, but you can tell there are two warring parties in that one, right?
Yeah.
But I think we can all agree that Life of Brian is their perfect film, right?
Oh, for sure. And here's my fun story about Life of Brian. So I'm at my height of Monty Python craze. And I take a little break. I decide to go down to the video store and rent something else. I'd heard about Flash Gordon. All right. Now I'm late to the game on the Flash Gordon, you know, it's old 70s.
You're never too late for Flash Gordon.
But I pop it in, and in the first 10 minutes, theme song comes on. My mother, now this is a fairly religious household that I'm growing up in. My mother says to me, "What is this song? Flash, Savior of the Universe? No. Turn this off and go rent something else." And I try to explain it to her, and I'm a little more down to earth. And okay, fine, Mom. So I walk down to the video store, and this is when I realize Monty Python has another film, Life of Brian. Let me rent that and see. That one flew right over her head. And it is, and the whole time I was hands over my mouth, terrified they were going to walk in the room and go, "Oh no, this is much worse." And I'm rolling like, yeah, perfect film.
And what a perfect story. I love that that's what got you there. The Flash being the savior of the universe was too blasphemous.
Too blasphemous. So let's downgrade and go to Life of Brian.
They follow up Life of Brian with Hollywood Bowl.
Yeah.
Again, seen too many times. But you know, it feels good watching them doing their thing live, but it's still not quite it, right?
It's not what we're looking for. Not coming off of Holy Grail and Life of Brian.
Now, Michael Palin, if you haven't read his book, I'm speaking to everyone here. If you haven't read Michael Palin's, he's published his diaries from 82 to 89, halfway to Hollywood. And he describes everything. And every time they wanted to do a movie, it was, and we all know this, a hard scramble to find the fucking financing to get those movies made, right?
Yeah.
So in 1982, MGM says, "We'll give you each $250,000, do whatever you want." And they're like, "Wow, how perfect." But we really have nothing to say. To the point where they're going to abandon it.
Yeah.
And it's Terry Jones who sort of comes in and has a leveler Welsh head and gets them back to the table. And their initial script is going to be, the movie is going to be called The 7 Stages of Man. it's going to be one character, and we're going to follow him through the 7 stages of his life. That character is supposed to be played by Terry Jones. I don't know when the switch comes where they're just like, fuck it, let's do sketches about these things. But I'm so happy they did.
Yeah.
This is going to be their final film, and they fucking go back to the well, but do it in a narrative format.
Yeah.
Look, Life of Brian can't be beat. It's a political, religious, wonderful statement for humanity.
Yeah.
It's the best of all of their instincts, all of their comedy. But
this is almost a perfect meld of, we're going to tell long form narrative and short sketch and somehow make them work together in a way that feels organic, even when it doesn't. But then they buffer it with, okay, here's our short film presentation, which is very Monty Python, to just break a fourth wall and do something right. And that's great glue to piece those two things together. And it's gorgeous.
Well, the short film, of course, popping up midway through, right?
And then bringing all of these things back to where, I mean, there's a feeling of, okay, this is, there's an anthology to this, and it is kind of their old sketch work. But then there's we're well aware of that, and we're going to bring it back around.
See, what I love about it is it's like as meaningful a movie as Life of Brian is, but it's about them. They each sort of allow themselves to go out and do their own thing. Terry Gilliam just wants to go off and make a fucking short film, and nobody says no when he keeps filming.
It was supposed to be 4 minutes, right?
It's 15 minutes.
At least.
It's totally absurd. Credits. I was a little too young to have snuck in at this point to have seen it in the theater, but I could imagine going in blind to see Monty Python's The Meaning of Life and this coming on. I guarantee you know this, you've worked in theaters. The poor usher outside that door had to go, no, it's part of the movie. Go back.
Yeah, it's already started. This is not a
10, 15 times a night. No, it's okay. Go back in. It's part. I guarantee you it's part of the movie.
Well, and they with it, they immortalize this, like something that I think has been missing from cinema for, even in our lifetime, is this, you get the featurette and then maybe the little advertisement, the cartoon, and then the this and then the that. Like it was a whole train of entertainment leading up to the big whatever. So they kind of give you that experience again with this too.
Yeah, and that's an experience that we just missed it, right?
Yeah.
It's the one we've been chasing our entire lives, right? So it's wonderful when they can do something like that. Grindhouse did something similar to that, where they gave us trailers and in between trailers and go to the snack bar and shit. You want that experience when you go to the movies, man. I know we tried to do that as much as possible. If at all possible, I would throw in that John Waters no smoking ad. Remember that? Remember that bit of beauty?
Yeah. Yeah, and I love it when I think Deadpool's doing some of that now, like they're doing the cell phone ad in front of them and whatnot. So, that's great. And that's cinema history. Like that's stuff that, like, now that is gone, and you can't even go to the Hollywood Museum here and see that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh man, let's just start at the top. Let's talk Crimson Permanent Insurance. Everyone knows Monty Python, and they don't need to get into further into that. But this is just a lovely end to their careers. This is a lovely end to Monty Python.
Monty Python, yeah.
Because everything else is just the contractual obligation album and this and that, and little specials and stuff, and it's cute and all the CD-ROMs. But like this is their last thing together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Crimson Permanent Insurance. What are your thoughts on Crimson Permanent Insurance, sir?
I mean, first of all, I think before we even get into this, you said this is the first comedy anthology that you're doing.
Yeah, man.
Is this also the first musical anthology that you're doing? Because this is really a musical film as well.
I 100% agree with you on that. And this is our first musical as well. I don't think we've even had a musical segment of a thing.
There you go. Yeah. And very Monty Python, too. They've always been good with the songs. Yeah, I mean, stands on its own as its own little thing. There's moments within the Crimson short that I'm thinking, if this is all there is, like, I'm fine with that. Pirates and Corporators, this is fantastic.
I wanted a sequel.
Yeah, for sure. I love that they reprise them too. That we get to see just moments before the big finale of them crashing through. But so. There's so much that goes on, and just the very big corporation of America. I mean, it's almost like you got to go frame by frame to kind of hit all these jokes. And I ended up rewatching. Now, I haven't seen this one as many as you have. I'm under a dozen with this one, which makes me sound like a noob. But the more that you go through the more that I watch these, the more there's jokes between the jokes. So catching some of those is pretty fun on these reviewings. So I think my favorite bits from it are the using the environment to create their own weapons, the fan blades that become swords, and the note sticky thing that you tack notes to and then put a little stamp on the end of it. That is just fantastic.
He would do that like throughout. That was going to be Gilliam. When they are fashioning those little weapons out of the little note spindles and such, I remembered there was a sketch he had done for Fisher King when he was trying to figure out who the Parry character was going to look like. And it was the shot of, it was a drawing of him like on one knee holding up his sword. And the sword itself, you could tell, was the emblem of a Buick.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So obviously this is on Gilliam's mind to repurpose.
Right. Yeah. Trash becoming, or different things becoming different things. Yeah. Which, is probably, I probably should have started there with Time Bandits.
Time Bandits preceded this,
12 Monkeys.
Yeah.
Those are in my pantheon of some of the greatest ever. And
well, you can't, I mean, Brazil just goes no without saying, yeah. Do you know, speaking of our time at the New Wilshire, the very first film I projected was the reissue of Brazil.
Yeah.
So that
we must have screened that again or something. I feel like
certainly did. It became a perennial.
Hand, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was magnificent.
What a fucking fantastic movie, Mr. Look, he could have done nothing else but that, and he'd be secure.
I mean, see the pieces of everything else in Brazil,
right?
There's almost I figured it out finally. Like, here's the story I've been trying to tell.
Yeah. It makes me want to weep. It's so good. Okay, so this Crimson Permanent Assurance is, first of all, was started out animated, I guess. It was just a regular Terry Gilliam thing, and then asked, well, could I just do this as a short? And they said, yeah, that's fine. And then he just kept going. Like, whoops, what did I do? Like, come on, man. Like,
did I make my own movie?
Yeah, you took a sizable portion of the budget and made this short film for yourself, just testing shit out in between Time Bandits and fucking
right.
So
a little side project.
Yeah.
By the way, you say it started as animated. I caught this time around, it's Acme stone cutting is on the sale. So like there's a little hey, cartoon nod right out the gate.
Yeah, right.
We're a little loony. And quite honestly, they do kind of, if you put together the Ministry of Silly Walks and slapping people off the dock with a fish, they are kind of the Looney Tunes. They're the human British Looney Tunes, and Cleese might be the Bugs,
Yeah, man. And that's what always delights me about their comedy is there's so many points of view there, and they're all sort of equally good at different types of comedy. Like some might shine higher than others, but like they can all do it.
Yeah.
I today really set my mind to figure out who my favorite Python is. Now,
there seems to be an obvious answer, but then you think and you go, well,
yes, and there's no thinking. It's you go, I'm picking this one, and then whatever the next one you think of, you go, oh no, but him.
Yeah.
And the next you go, oh no, but him. And I think at the time that this movie came out, it was Eric Idle for me.
Yeah,
because he's the musical one. He seems incredibly clever. Yeah. Just like you would just want to. I don't know. You want him as a friend, man.
Yeah.
He would be like hanging out with a cartoon character, but a refined cartoon character who could also do the silliest things on earth. He has my favorite line of dialogue from any of Monty Python, which is back in Flying Circus. And it's a stupid non sequitur joke where he comes on and says, "What's brown and sounds like a bell? Dung." Every time.
Some of that's the delivery too, because it's a silly joke, but
it's his delivery. The joke is worthless without how debonair he always seems when he's doing things.
Yeah.
So, it was Eric Idle then, but I think I've come around to Terry Jones.
Really?
There's just something so disarming about him. And when I think of his work outside Python, he wrote Labyrinth.
He wrote it?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Huh.
And then he made Eric the Viking.
Yeah.
Which is so good.
Yeah.
And then he did all those like medieval documentaries. And he just seems sweet and funny and Welsh. And you got to love Welsh.
Well, he might be the nice one.
Yeah, but like, and then he directs this. And I think of their movies, I mean, I love the look of Holy Grail, but I think this is the best directed movie.
That is a tough call. It might be with some of the dance numbers that they have in there.
I'm thinking of that specifically. I'm thinking of Every Sperm is Sacred. Yeah. That sequence, I could watch it over and over again. It's as good as anything that came out of Hollywood in the golden age.
I would agree. I was thinking to myself that, like, as far as talking musical anthologies, I was like, this kicks Singing in the Rain's ass.
Oh man,
Singing in the Rain is a disjointed mess. Like, I mean, it's all good pieces, but like,
sure.
Come on.
Yeah. Do you remember Singing in the Rain played at our theater and Meryl Streep came in with her daughter? And they went and sat in the theater. Meryl Streep came out and got candy, and then she went back in, and then she came back out and got popcorn. She went back in. She came back out and got like a hot dog. And I was standing at the counter and I said, well, you're a big eater. And she gave me the dirtiest look and said, this is all for my daughter. And then went back into the theater.
You're the best.
Terry Jones' direction of the movie, the musical portion of the movie, like that sequence is fantastic. And here's the thing: like the other movies are fantastically directed, but they are more narrative. So I'm more impressed with Jones on his own here because he's given dozens of genres that he has to hop through. We go to World War. We're fighting the Zulu battles in Africa at one point.
Very seamless going between one to the other. It's, kid covering head and then, now we're in war, and same pulling out of the same guy, Yeah.
As cinematic as anything that Gilliam's doing, except it doesn't have that sheen of fairy tale on top of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree. I think they do pull, like I said, I'm a big Chapman and old school silent movie guy too. And I think Python has always understood that, and maybe Terry specifically. And I think of things like where you set the camera up and you let the actors and the comedy do its thing, and it doesn't have to be about quick cutting or moving around. And there's things like jumping to the end now, but like the death coming off the cliff, and it's just this upshot from the grave, everybody in the room, and everybody's got their little behavior, and it's that you get a lot of comedy in one shot, and it's pick your composure, pick your shot. Yeah,
could not agree with more. Like that shot. Just the holding while Death is making his way to the cabin, just the sort of sparse and lonely footage that we can jump around. It doesn't matter. This is, I mean, life is full of choices. When we get to the Death, we'll get to the initial portion of Death, but the main bit of it is here at this English sort of cabin, and a dinner party being thrown. Death shows up. Look, it's a hilarious sequence, but the scene itself is as tense and as well directed as anything that was coming out of Hammer or Amicus in the 70s. It really feels eerie.
And like a great, easy, practical effect that still works to this day of Death crossing through the table in the middle of the room to kind of prove that I am Death. Oh, and just from the way you frame it, it looks like he's walking through a table. It's great.
We don't need to see the skull and the flaming eyes. It's just a fucking skeleton. He's got skeleton hands. Man, they were so proud of the articulation of those hands when they figured out that they could make it squeeze the balls.
Yeah.
Do you know how dumb I am? I did not realize that was John Cleese as Death.
I figured it out this last time around. I can't even remember the word, but there was a word in there where I went, oh, that's Cleese. And of course it is, because where is he in the scene?
That was the one thought follows the other. Exactly. Like, oh, it's Cleese. Oh yeah, where is he?
Yeah.
Gilliam is in the scene and Cleese isn't in the scene. I wonder who's
my favorite
gigantic Death. What?
Gilliam as the dumb American is kind of my favorite thing in that scene of just, let me ask you something here.
For so many years, I had no idea who that human was. Just because I started watching it at 11, and then when I started watching Flying Circus, he's not on Flying Circus, but a few times.
Yeah, he's mostly the animator.
Yeah, so seeing this guy, I'm like, wow, he just must be one of these actors they work with from time to time. But no, that's of course Python.
Yeah.
And he's great in the scene. Mr. Death.
Mr. Death.
Shut up, you. I love this thought of the English of us. You Americans, you always talk, you Americans, just talk and you say, let me tell you something. I just want to say this one thing. Well, you're dead now, so shut up.
And it's kind of a perfect takedown. Like, yeah, dead on.
I mean, he goes after the English as well.
Yeah, he goes after the English as well.
For me, watching it today, I realized it was Cleese on the line. Wow. When she says, Mr. Death, it was like, oh, that's Cleese.
That's what it is. Yeah. Because he's the yes. He's the yes. So whatever they're like in the birth scenes.
Yeah. Oh my God. Show it to the mother. The World War I sequence, man fighting against man, demonstrated his, you bastard. Nobody says bastard better than John Cleese. Yeah. If I could have him say it to someone once in my life, I would never say the word again. You know, just if he was with me, just call him,
retire it.
You bastard. You know, go, okay, I promise I'll never use the word again. Thank you for that.
I kind of wanted him in full Faulty Towers mode, doing like a GPS for me. Take a right, no, the other right, you know.
Oh, it's not too late. Somebody make that happen. Angry John Cleese. He always seemed the angriest of the group, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
Zimmerman.
Everybody seemed to agree that he was. So. All right, fair enough.
What's your favorite sequence in this movie? I'm wondering.
Oh, good God! You're gonna make me pick,
right? Do you know? I've been listening to a few podcasts about this movie, and the consensus seems to be that it's not all that funny. I would defy everyone to go go fuck yourself, man, because every scene in this movie makes me laugh, with the exception of one, and I've never liked it, which is middle age.
Middle age where
they're having a conversation about philosophy. This conversation isn't very good. That sequence.
Okay, that bit. Yeah, because the organ transplant, I think, starts middle age.
Yeah. No, that's amazing.
Yeah. And very classic Python, even with the blood spraying.
You know what my favorite part is?
I'll give you that.
What?
I was trying to, that does seem to be this kind of talking point that people throw out as like, oh, this is the lesser of their films. And I mean, I may have thought that too on the first viewing or so, because
in comparison
toward the end, as well as, you know, but in reviewing, you go, well, make the list. Like, what are the jokes that killed you? Okay, well, Crimson Pirate, it starts it off. So that's 15 minutes of funny right off the top. So that part's okay. Then we're into Every Sperm is Sacred. So that's brilliant. You know, and you start going through the list.
You know what?
Like, I'm an hour 15 in and I'm laughing my ass off. And even the goofy, like the tiger's eating his leg, like, it's still pretty goddamn funny. So
that might be my favorite scene.
That one has grown so much on me that, like, it on its face, it feels like another kind of, oh, this is what we do. We go, oh, you got bit by something, a mosquito? No, oh, got the whole leg, did you know? And it feels like, all right, this is just, you know, more Monty Python doing its old shtick. But no, there's a lot going on there. There's some breaking of the fourth wall. There, I mean, probably one of my favorite lines is, well, we better put together a party. What? You really think there's time for that? No, search party, sir. Oh, right. And it's that flip-flop that they do that is just glorious and timed so beautifully every time.
Not to mention just the practical effect of the soldier who's been sliced into pieces, sliding apart, like something you see in a Saw movie these days, or like
one of the greatest practicals.
It's always startling. I'm always waiting for it, you know, like, oh, it's
on the back.
Yeah, down you go, piece by piece.
Yeah, and I mean, we should probably shout out to the sheer number of insane extra scenes. You know, we start with thousands of children dancing, and then we're getting into like fights with Zulu warriors where they're just constantly battling in the background while they're shaving. Like, my
production
God.
Value. Yeah. They had a studio behind them and he utilized it.
I feel like there was we still have some money left? Can we get some more kids? You know?
Do you know what's funny? Evidently, he spent a far too large portion of the budget on the Every Sperm is Sacred sequence. And withheld that information from the rest of the group. And do you know what? If that were the only thing that came out of this experience, it would be worth it.
it would still be a viral today on the internet. People would still be like, "Oh, have you seen Sperm is Sacred?"
I mean, Life of Brian is a very wonderful sort of damning take on the sort of vagaries of organized religion. But having grown up Roman Catholic, this one grabbed me right where I lived, and in a lot of ways made me sort of reevaluate how the Bible and God was being disseminated to me. This not
There's
only
a bit of a crack in the.
Absolutely, it turned me into a Martin Luther. No, not that I'm Protestant, but not only this scene, but then we get a slice of Protestantism, not only in the sort of dialogue between between Graham Chapman and Eric Idle about how sexless they are, but we get that chapel scene, which is my other favorite joke in the movie, the prayer that Michael Palin is doing. It made me think about that really is every prayer, isn't it? It's just, ooh, you are so great. You're absolutely huge. Gosh, we're all really impressed down here. I can tell you.
I know you think we're sucking up, but really it's just because you're that great. Yeah. And then the complete opposite of that, when they go to is it the final prayer or the final song, is we're terrified of you.
Yes, please don't boil us and smash us. The utter absurdity, and like that's Ralph Jones, but back to Every Sperm is Sacred. So that one is, like I said, a little more pointed. It is very much about the Roman Catholic idea that you shouldn't wear a prophylactic to stop procreating, which is absolutely ridiculous, making sperm sacred, and then turning it into a musical number, using the children who have to be sold off to medical experiments because they're so plentiful that they can no longer afford to feed them. At the end of all that absurdity, the dragon comes into it. Speaking of you, it's so good you're here, because that is my favorite part of that sequence, when the fucking dragon comes out into the parade of Every Sperm is Sacred. Oh my God, it kills me every time.
All of a sudden.
It's a Chinese New Year. So anyone who says this movie's not funny, man, go jump in a lake.
Oh, for real.
To turn that sort of religioso political hot potato into one of the funniest things, and also, again, one of the better musical sequences from the 1980s anyway.
Oh, at least, yeah. And I mean, you might need to stack it up to some other real deal musicals. I think it holds. I think it holds itself in that department.
It beats anything in Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. I'll tell you that much.
For sure. Yeah. Little Shop of Horrors. Maybe that's
a tough fight, because that's so stylized. Yeah. But any other, like Annie, I mean, come on.
I got a soft spot in my heart for Annie.
We all do, and we all love John Huston. But come on, man.
Yeah, come on. Every Sperm is Sacred. You can't beat it.
Can't
and then I love the kids trying to argue him out of selling them off to medical experiments too. Of like, well, can't you just cut them off? I mean, isn't it? Well, no, God knows every trick.
Evidently, a lot of ADR in that scene, because there were so many kids. Python being sensitive to that, they just had them say other lines and ADR'd it later.
Really?
So that kid didn't say, "Can't you have your balls cut off?" And Michael Palin did not say, "If I could wear a little rubber thing on the end of my cock." He said, like, on the end of my sock or something like that. Yeah.
Right, yeah. So they did the whole vacuum, fuck you kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, that's I see. And you can tell that there's a little bit of, social consciousness to them or whatnot. There's a couple of actually very forward-thinking jokes throughout the movie that you're like, wow. The one in particular that comes to mind is at the end with the maid cleaning up the slop, who gives this great speech.
Oh man!
And does something so off color that he has to take the bucket of slop and dump it on her head and go, "Sorry, didn't know we had a racist here."
And there, I know it's such a wonderful scene. And there again it's Terry Jones with the horrible racist getting the bucket dumped on his head. And what is being swept up is Terry Jones, who is the most vile character in cinema history, Mr. Creosote.
Yeah. Who somehow survives the explosion.
He fucking lives.
Is he in the end scene? I don't think he's in the end.
He's not in heaven.
I mean, they were like, we're not rebuilding that rib cage. And
yeah, carting it to a new location. Are you out of your fucking minds? It's not going to survive the day.
We got the damn orphans and the Zulu warriors. We're fine.
You know what? Okay, let's talk about the end of the movie when everyone goes to heaven. Let's talk about getting to heaven. When everyone dies because they've all been poisoned at the same time, except Michael Palin, who in the film's only ad lib, I didn't eat the salmon.
Yeah. Still a mystery there. Why is she spiriting out?
Another spectacular joke is, should we take our cars? Why? I don't see why not.
Yeah, better than walking. And then cars up into the eternal tunnel of life or whatever it is. Oh yeah,
it's really the most absurd thing ever. And I don't know. I can't. It must be what I think. It's what I don't know. I don't understand what younger folk are thinking about this movie, other than dad jokes. I heard that a few times in reference to this film. Ghost cars going to heaven.
It's not a dad joke. I mean, that's
that should just transcend time, you know.
Yeah.
But when they get to heaven, okay, God is played by Graham Chapman. That's God.
As
the performer on stage.
Oh, okay. It's supposed to be not Baccarat. I was wondering why they didn't make him look like Burt Baccarat since they referenced him earlier.
Right.
No, he's more a Tony Bennett looking God.
Tony Bennett, or I was getting Burt Convey.
Okay, yeah.
But the sort of Tony Bennett delivery.
Yeah, for sure.
And here's what I came to while rewatching the scene: that this musical number, the film's fifth, sixth, I don't know.
Yeah. I think I counted them. At least 7, I think. Where are my notes? 6.
It's a musical. If you have 6 fucking musical numbers, you're a musical. The last musical, the genre in my mind is horror. They're in hell, right?
You would think, yeah. It kind of seems like it. I mean, everybody's still bloodied up. There's still a severed head from the war.
Yeah, nobody's like reunited with
heaven in your messed up body.
Yeah, the head on the plate always amused me. But if every day of eternity is Christmas, that's pretty hellacious. And you have to watch that show every day?
Well, now we're getting into the weeds. Yeah.
I don't know, man.
Oh, my goodness. This actually, so they reprise the transplant song at the end of the movie, the Galaxy song. Thank you. And he says in that scene earlier in the film, after the song plays, her reaction to it is, well, I feel pretty insignificant now. And he goes, yeah, so why don't you give us your liver? Okay, reprise the song as your audience is walking out of the auditorium. You now need to feel insignificant. Goodbye. What great. And that's, yeah.
It is,
and that kind of, feeds into that.
There is a reading of this movie that could be made where this is them as much saying fuck you to everybody, including their audience, as anything else going on. I mean, it's actually pretty contemptuous at the end, because the film technically has a narrator in that Michael Palin shows up in the middle of the film, and then at the end of the film, not only giving us the meaning of life, which I think most people are taking as really pithy, but really it is the meaning of life. Like, as it turns out, all these years later, I go, oh yeah, no, that's it, really.
Well, and that, I think Contemptuous is like, you really hit it with that when
what follows.
Yeah, but it's kind of like idiots. Like, what were you thinking it was going to be?
So yeah, the actual meaning of life is as simple as can be, and you should have figured it out on your own. And then he launches into this attack on, we can't get anybody out to the sodding cinema.
Yeah.
They're all, he references Friday the 13th here.
And like, I missed the Friday the 13th reference.
Oh, he says, like, you want like hockey mask killers, like stabbing people with knitting needles. That's the bloody video jaded audience. Like, fuck you all. Bye.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's,
it is pretty great.
I doubt that's
this is our last, like, and then we're going to pull out of our old show to be like, see you later, suckers.
Yeah, exactly. Because that could be seen as sort of elegiac, but that we get, oh, here's a taste of the past as we end it all. But it's also like, bye.
Yeah. And is this like, maybe this is some sort of commentary in general of like, was this the meaning of our lives? Like we did this stupid fish walk, silly walk, bullshit, and that's that. And then we eat salmon that's bad and we're done.
Do you know that the last time Monty Python performed together as a group was the fish scene at the opening of this movie?
On camera?
Yeah.
Yeah. Really?
Yep.
That's them as the fishes, which is also another tie around throughout the movie that keeps coming back. We're seeing a lot of this through the fishes.
It's the fishes who have been asking the questions, after all. None of the people in this movie give a shit about the meaning of life, really.
Yeah.
They're just living their lives. The fish are the ones who are being told the tale, I believe.
Yeah. And they're in multiple places. We know they're in heaven, but they're also down on earth because they see
They wonder where that fish is gone.
Yeah.
They love that part.
So they exist in multiple realities, I think, at once. What's also great is that I love the dead middle of the movie where they just call themselves out and they go, wasn't this supposed to be about the meaning of life? Like, nobody said much about this, have they? Should we talk about boobies for a second? Like, there are an inordinate number of boobies in this movie we don't see a lot of that these days. And, in true Monty Python fashion, it's not only do they call themselves out for being gratuitously sexist for showing so many bouncing boobies in slow-mo, but one of my favorite scenes is the sex ed, growing and coming off the heels of, and I'm assuming these are the same Catholic kids that we just saw singing about Please Don't Boil Us.
Oh, no, these are Protestant kids now.
Oh, these are the Protestants, that's right.
Yeah. So
because why would you be doing that in a Catholic school? Right.
The only thing that really remains from the 7 Stages of Man, when it was going to be one narrative, is the prep school into the war. That's one character.
Okay.
And presumably we would have followed him coming back from the war and on until he died.
Right.
But yeah, let's talk the sex ed scene, because it's again, I find it funny on so many levels that what they're saying is kind of true. Like, first of all, it's absurd that they would be performing sex education. They would be having sex in front of their students in order to educate them.
How is this school still in existence?
Yeah, and even funnier though, that nobody is interested at all. It might as well be algebra.
Right. Yeah. And that it's kind of the genius of the scene is the disinterested kids. And, are you watching football?
The hilarious part is, if those kids would listen, he's actually giving them really good advice.
Yeah. One of my other favorite lines from this movie is, how do we stimulate the clitoris? How do we do the foreplay? Stimulate the clitoris.
How about the kiss?
I've got to go right for the clitoris. Like a bull in a china shop just racing toward the clitoris. Genius.
He's so gentle in that scene. And, what's funny is, like,
it is very thoughtful.
That Cleese, he can hide that anger really well and make you think he's paternal, but then in the next scene, he's going to fucking trip you.
Yeah. Yeah, which is the other great, yeah. Can we have some sort of a reason to show adults beating the shit out of children?
And
yeah, football.
And a lot of them went through that prep school existence. I know specifically Eric Idle has spoken about how soul crushing his life was in there. So I'm glad that they were, even as late as the 1980s, still hammering hard on that institution, Yeah.
Make sure this doesn't rear its ugly head again somewhere, which I'm sure it exists out there. I read, or I guess it was in the Monty Python, The Truth, one of the documentaries that they did. When they were talking about this, it sounded like they wrote a lot of it separately, but it sounds like there was a little more cohesion than what I had read. Do you have any?
I know that they went to Jamaica together to do it. And
I heard that.
And that's when they sort of came to the impasse. But that was also Jones bringing them back to the table. That doesn't mean that they were necessarily in the room together, because I don't think those guys were ever in the room together.
I feel like they wrote alone to begin with. Right?
Well, there were partners. It was Chapman and Cleese. It was Palin and Jones. And it was Idle by himself and Gilliam by himself.
Sing us track number 6 from the soundtrack Isn't it awfully nice to have a penis?
Bro, no, sing the whole song.
I don't know. I'd have to get the lyrics out.
Isn't it frightfully good to have a dong? Well, to own a stiffy, it's divine to own a dick. From the tiniest little tadger to the world's biggest prick. So 3 cheers for you, Willie or John Thomas. Hooray for your one-eyed trouser steak. Your piece of pork, your wife's best friend, your posse or your cock. You can wrap it up in ribbons, you can slip it in your sock. But don't take it out in public or they will stick you in the dark and you won't. I come back. Oh, thank you very much.
Pretty clever.
A little bit of Noel Coward right before a man explodes from overeating.
Yeah, right. And while we're on that, I see him waddling into the room again. There seems to be a shift in that man exploding scene where Cleese is, being a very good server to and probably the greatest, 2 or 3 of the greatest puke takes ever. The opening of the menu, right as it's hitting it to spray in every direction. It's just gorgeous. And then the folding of the menu afterward and tucking it under his arm and it's still dripping out. Come on.
I have trod Monsieur's bucket.
And maybe that's the turning point. But there's a moment where you see him go, here's your wafer. I know you're going to blow up. As if I've been plotting this for some time.
I've read accounts of that where people think that he was not doing anything, like he was not in on that, to which I would say he runs for cover.
Yeah, dives. Like action stunt. And then looks back up and goes, hee hee hee.
I can't find that writing. I'm not going to look at it.
I'll find it.
But that's all good because Creosote is awesome. And Cleese in his simmering anger is fantastic. We haven't really talked about Michael Palin, however.
Oh, and then you think, well, maybe he's my favorite.
Yeah, because you know what?
How can you not love Palin?
Right. And that's the thing, right? Okay, so not only that, and now I've said what my favorite scene in the movie is, which is the Zulu sequence, but like, honestly, really? It's don't stand there gawping like you've never seen the hand of God before. His Sergeant Major,
his little Full Metal Jacket bit is...
It's incredible.
It's incredible. Don't stand there gulping like you haven't seen the hand of God before. And then this is the brilliant, 1, 2, boom, we've segued, we're into something else. 3 absurd, stupid things just happen. You're still processing that and you're into something new already.
To me, this is where I think most people wanted this for the entire movie, because this is as close to the old series as you could get, including Chapman as the, stop that, it's silly character, sort of repurposed here. And then, because, the jokes just keep flying here and everything is brief and great and in and out. But, that doesn't mean that the rest of the movie doesn't work. But this scene in particular, the way it's shot with that fucking fisheye lens when his face rears up into it, the idea of a sergeant major who is so blasé at the hand of God appearing, and then being the strictest taskmaster in the world, but also the most reasonable. Right. I can't love this character any more than I already do.
And I don't know if this works if it's not Palin. There's something about this is one of those bits, and they do this sometimes too, where they write a bit where you're like, oh, I see what they're doing from the beginning. I know what the joke is. Once the first guy goes away, you're like, here's the shtick. Most comedic troops, you kind of, I'm ahead of you now. It doesn't matter. Palin sells every moment to where somehow it just gets funnier. and some of that is the volume. And I mean, we talk about Cleese being angry. Who's the better screamer?
Yeah, no. Based on this information and given to us from this scene, it's clearly Michael Palin, which is so funny because he seems like he's the nicest one in the thing, just like the most personable and like the charming one. Like when Life of Brian was under attack in England at the time by like religious leaders and such, it was Palin who was really sort of bridging the gap between the angrier pythons and the sort of rational conversation that needed to be happening.
Yeah.
But it's good to see he could also have done that if he wanted to go the fuck off on those religious leaders. Like if this Sergeant Major had shown up, we could have had a different story. What went down in the 70s with Python.
Yeah.
That been their last movie.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. Oh, you're back out again.
Back.
You're back. All right. If we're going to talk, just to take a quick segue, if we're going to talk favorite lines,
Yeah.
I got to say, probably the greatest line, Monty Python, final answer for me is Life of Brian. It's the crowd scene. We are all individuals. We are all individuals. And the one guy, I'm not. I'm done. Like, that's the greatest piece of written comedy.
One of those Slayer lines, right?
Yeah.
We're going to set it up. You're going to watch us do it, and you're still going to fucking laugh.
Yeah. I'm not. My God. Yeah. Dad jokes. Who says that?
Oh, I was
the Gen Zers.
You know what? I wasn't
date ourselves now.
I wasn't offended so much as sad for that person that they were.
Yeah, really.
They couldn't see what was going on here. But then I think, like, look, I've loved this movie since I was a kid, but this wasn't my favorite Python movie. I don't know that it is. It might. No, it definitely is now. But I think a lot of that comes from having experienced what those guys had experienced, which was a life by then. That, you know, it's easy to love Holy Grail. It's a bunch of angry young men fucking jetting out on their own for the first time cinematically, fucking with a lot to prove. They don't have a goddamn thing to prove here. They're ruminating.
Yeah.
So a lot of the humor comes from the sort of the overall absurdity of life and not necessarily something so in your face.
And that might be part of the joy of finding the other depths and levels on it, because it's very much as a kid, it's a Python. And the stuff that's funny to you as a kid is, yeah. But then you add in this, okay, there's stages of life that at 12, 14, 20, we didn't hit yet. So we don't necessarily know some of the nuance that's going on and some of what they're doing for these later bits. So yeah, I think as we grow up, I mean, this definitely hit me different rewatching it to, kind of prep for this show. I went, yeah, I get to watch it again. And went, there's a lot, like I was a little stunned at how, I always knew it was deep because it's the meaning of life. And I knew that they were weaseling stuff in there. And some of those were my favorite lines. But this was really like, wow, they really do they don't back off on even though they joke about, we haven't told you anything about the meaning of life in the middle of the film. No, they really have. They've hit a lot of stuff coming up to that point. It's just not been spoon-fed. And then they go, all right, now we'll spoon-fed some shit to you and see how that goes. So yeah.
They'll hand it to them.
I think you grow with the movie,
I feel like I certainly have. Okay, speaking of sort of sequences, that this scene actually helped me out in my life. When I was in 8th grade, I had a mean old nun as our teacher. And one day she tried to pull this bullshit where she gave us this science quiz with information that she had not thus taught us about astronomy. And on the quiz, it was all about the Milky Way. And it just so happens that I had heard the Galaxy song on a loop in my head. So I fucking aced her stupid quiz because I know that we were 50,000 light years from galactic point.
Yeah.
I know that the Galaxy Way bulges in the middle 16,000 light years thick, but out by us, it's just 3,000 light years wide. Sorry, Sister Amatis.
Once again, the old science versus religion. Science wins.
And the genius of Eric Idle. And no reason I loved him so much as a kid. Like, he wrote the first They Might Be Giants song with Galaxy Song.
I was going to say, it reminds me very much of that. I did not surprised to hear he was involved in that. I didn't know that.
No. I'm just saying, like, he wrote.
Oh, he wrote the first. I see what you're saying.
He wrote what they were going to be basically making their career on.
You're saying they ripped him off, is what?
Yeah, basically. I think John and John might owe Eric Idle a few royalties.
They might.
They here comes the science.
Like the kind of guys that would pay it too.
Yeah, they would.
Oh, good call. You're right.
I shouldn't suggest that. I'm sorry.
We just started some shit. Now we're in the middle of a Python lawsuit.
Another one.
Another one.
And you know what? Now Eric Idle seems like the most reasonable of all. If you see him, like, he's he's not taking shit and letting everybody know exactly what's up and who's doing what to whom.
Yeah. I mean, there's a big part of me that wishes they were best friends just because you want them to be. But the chemistry is the chemistry, and I mean, I don't know if we get what we got if they liked each other a little more. But Yeah.
We wouldn't have, because those 5 personalities striking up against each other, thank God, but like it's interesting to see those pairings, though, to think of Eric Idle sort of off on his own doing the same amount of work as a bunch of writing partners were doing. It's hard on your own.
Yeah.
So in a way, he's my favorite Python. Now it's Eric Idle, everybody.
Now it's Eric Idle. We're watching it.
By the end, it'll be Cleese, because it always is. Because as much of a dick as he is, and the bitter, cranky old man he's become, like, there's something about that guy.
Yeah.
What is it? He's erudite, but willing to fucking roll around in the mud and be stupid.
Oh, for sure. And, I see his tweets all the time, and he's a pretty conscientious dude who also doesn't take shit and loves calling people out for their shit. So there's there's a bit of a warrior to him that, like, maybe you need to be cantankerous and, whatever. Now you're old. Now you can be cantankerous. Like, be as old man as you can right now,
I feel cheated, though, because he got to be cantankerous his whole motherfucking life just because he was so talented.
Yeah, the writing was on the wall for him from day one.
He was like, I'm 65. I just got to get there, I guess.
Yeah, he was one of those guys born that age.
But you know what? Let's talk my favorite Python, Graham Chapman.
All right. I have to say, and I would guess that Graham would have it no other way. My favorite Graham Chapman moment of all time is the moment where he wasn't actually alive, but it was the live show and they had his urn of ashes sitting on the table. And I think it's Cleese that crosses his legs and kicks it over and spills them all over the place. Oh, Graham! Oh, so sorry. It's like Graham.
Truly wonderful.
Still killing it even after death.
Do you remember that incredibly dangerous club he belonged to? It's a group of British adventurers, and most of them, including Chapman, I think at that point knew he was terminal. And they do things like bring double-decker buses to mountains and then ski down the mountain while riding inside the double-decker bus.
Adventure club.
Yeah,
Adventure club.
I mean, really, it's Jackass, just like stylish.
Yeah. Jackass UK.
Graham Chapman was the perfect front man for, or rather leading man for Python, I think. I think there's no question that you would want him over Cleese to be King Arthur, to be Brian.
Oh, yeah. He's got much more of an everyman, old school everyman to him, for sure. Yeah.
There's a depth just looking into that guy's eyes.
Yeah.
And I know he was a drunk and everything, but like, who fucking gives a shit? You know what I mean? Like, the man was living.
Never go do dramatic stuff, because I feel like he's the guy that would have like killed it in some dramatic roles as well.
He absolutely would have. Like, it's kind of a shame because the only other real sort of big performance we got from him was Yellowbeard, and that he's great in that movie, but that's a terrible movie.
It's not that. Yeah, it doesn't live up to him.
Yeah. It's a whiter shade of pale of Python, it's just like kind of going through the motions here.
Yeah.
But you mentioned boobies and his sequence.
How did we mention that and get off topic?
This man is about to die. I mean, clearly when I was 13, there was no better scene in the movie than Mr. Jarrett's death. How meta-fucking physical was this? That we're watching this guy who has chosen his means of execution. His crime is the means of execution. Because it's for making a gratuitous sexist joke in a movie. This is the gratuitous sexist joke that he's going to be punished for. I don't know. It's a Mobius strip.
Yes, it is. It's a snake head eating itself. And yeah. And and again, that's kind of the genius of we're going to call it out while we're doing it. And, a lot of comedians haven't figured this out. And we are living in an era where you make some of these jokes the wrong way, you expose yourself as being somebody who's not very, not very forward thinking or whatnot, or very conscientious or tolerant. And they nail it every time. Like, they know exactly what they're doing and how to do it. And there you go. Yeah.
And speaking just on a performance level, when we see Graham Chapman for the first time in his panic, I genuinely feel for that man. He seems terrified. Like, that is terror. That's not acting fear.
Well, and this is the other level of the joke, so we've already got a couple levels of the joke working on, and now he's chosen his own method, and it is to die by being chased off a cliff by as many boobies as possible, and he's terrified of it.
He's terrified of it.
You chose it. Number one. Number two, you chose it because it's boobies.
But it's the worst.
Scared?
Oh my
What is
God.
happening?
It's the most sophisticated joke about the stupidest, most sexist thing.
That is them in a nutshell.
My God.
And they exist in a lot of nutshells, but that is one of the nutshells they exist in. That is just, it's brilliant. That's why they are who they are.
And then it does end, as you said, just so beautifully with that body falling through the air into his casket.
At a trajectory that
is a 45-degree angle.
Is out the window. This is not possible. It's like they would have had the t-shirt
Stuntman can't fall into a bag with as much accuracy as Mr. Jarrett falling off of a cliff to his death into his own coffin on the sea. That made me wonder as a child, can you do that? Can you just be buried on the beach in a coffin like that?
I don't think you can.
I don't think you can either.
But I guess if they give you your choice.
In that world, evidently, that's...
Were all of those pieces part of the choice? Was he like, all right, we need boobies, the helmets on the women, we need shore, I like the ocean. I need to be able to make a jump that can end up in the Guinness Book of World Records. I don't know.
And you know what? In that sequence, we're just going to keep talking about the movie, I guess, because we get Gilliam at his best in the next sequence, which is these leaves, the suicidal leaf in autumn.
His best animation in that, yes.
And the fallout therein when he's discovered having killed himself. And a perfect Python joke. We don't need to see the foot drop into the frame when all of those leaves give up at once.
Right. Yeah. And this is another thing that I love about them. They take a rando perspective on something. They'll go, what is fall like for a leaf? Isn't that just mass suicide? Like, and I see these think tank meetings with them. They're like, yeah. But this is all Gilliam. So it's Gilliam alone in a room talking to himself, going like, trees, leaves, it's mass suicide. Which, by the way, brings up a good question. Does Gilliam ever become your favorite?
No. I'm sorry, but no. Gilliam is one of my favorite filmmakers. He's one of my favorite.
That would be my distinction. If I said performer versus director, Python.
I think, here's the thing. When they were doing Flying Circus, he very well could be my favorite Python member. More often than not, as a kid, probably he was my favorite Python member.
Just for the animations?
Yeah. Because they're as integral to every other performance in that. But once we get into the film, he's behind the camera and occasionally, a little part. He's very funny in Holy Grail, but I don't consider him on the par with any of the others.
Performance-wise, no. Yeah.
No, he's there because he's a good animator and he's really funny, but he's not there because he wasn't in the Footlight Parade or whatever the fuck they were doing for Cambridge.
Right. We're getting into the weeds here, but do you know how he came into the group?
I believe he had been running in San Francisco, I want to say, like sort of humorous magazines and such, and accepted a job in England, basically doing that, like photo funnies kind of things, and animation without animation kind of a thing.
Precursor to Gilliam.
Yeah, and I know it was like either Palin or one of them sort of befriended him, and then these guys all eventually sort of came together, and then he got brought along. So I'm not trying to diminish his role or anything, but
no, not at all. I don't
know what I mean. Like, it's not like they pulled him in and he wasn't as good as any of them or anything.
This kid, he can draw, whatever.
It's clearly he made Fisher King. You know what I mean? Like, what am I going to say?
Yeah, Fisher King. Like I said, 12 Monkeys, Fisher King, like this.
That's a 1-2 punch right there, man. The 80s in general, the 80s for Gilliam were fucking great.
Ridiculous. Yeah, to the point of, not to get off money in general, but you're probably the same way of like, who's my favorite director of this decade kind of a thing. And he had a decade for me there where it was like everything he does, I'm there. Yeah.
There in ways we couldn't be for other filmmakers, even as good as they were being. There was something so fucking unique about Terry Gilliam. And there was something that made me so proud as an American that he was the American in Python.
Yeah, there is a little bit of like, see, we can stand with you guys in the comedy.
Do it in another way, maybe.
Do it in another way. And then we got Robin Williams, and we were like, okay, maybe we beat you. Now, all right, you're on the same. Which that's like, oh man, I don't even want to go there.
Fisher King is just absolutely fucking brilliant, and Brazil is his best movie. It's a fucking achievement. But I'm not going to watch Brazil as much as I'm going to watch Fisher King, just for the sweet-heartedness of it all.
You know, and I think that's probably his emotional. That's where the most human he's been was with Fisher King.
It's the least cynical.
For sure. And just that it's it is my favorite Gilliam film. It just hits so many goddamn levels for me. That's hard to beat.
So no, he'll never be my favorite Python, but he's just as intense.
Deserves to be there.
Yeah, man, like he's as hard as any of those motherfuckers.
For sure.
Any other notes? I'm running out of topics here with the meaning of life.
Yeah, you did mention one thing which we talked a little bit about, but there is this, and I don't feel like this was much going on a lot in Flying Circus as much, but there is this educational element to the meaning of life as well. Just like, oh yeah, there's a lot of history, and I mean just the religious conversations with Protestant versus Catholic, and then we get into a little bit of history of these are clearly thinkers doing silly things, and it's a perfect mesh.
That again, like this movie playing to each of their members' strength, because as great as they are silly at the silly and the physical stuff, and these guys started out as writers, and so the conversation between the Protestant and his wife is so verbose, and you can feel that. I believe that's Chapman writing that stuff, like where like you said, this is a natural conversation that in any other movie would have been an exposition dump of a character to let us know what was actually going on. It is supremely educational, and it's fucking hilarious.
Yeah. And then you get her piping in to give you a little.
You realize this poor clueless woman played by Eric Idle, who is
just done this more than twice.
Didn't realize that sex was the thing, because that's how sexless the Protestants are, which I loved in comparison to Out the Window, the endless stream of children during the entire scene.
Glad you brought that up.
The house is like a clown car of children.
And you know that they just looped them, but the effect is just awesome. I mean, and I feel like they must have been writing the Protestant scene going, can we make it just a little longer? Can he bitch a little bit longer about something just so we can see a few more orphans go by?
And Chapman's so good in that scene. Like, do you have one of those? Well, no, but just, yeah, I could.
And just clueless that she's kind of getting like, wait a minute, what's going on over here?
But I'm just explaining something to you, honey. Right. We're not going to have sex any more than we already have. Sorry. Well, no.
Why don't we? And he's just going, yeah.
Black Mamba. French tickler. Now, speaking of Graham Chapman, the image that I saw of the movie before I saw the movie, it was in a magazine, I believe, was the middle of the film portion, the wonder where's the fish, with Chapman in this fucking outrageous, corset and wig, while Terry Jones, God bless him, with fucking these like, oh my God, Freddy Krueger, like some nightmare arms that are so long but bend in 6 places,
but still has finger mobility.
It's a real nightmare sequence.
And that might be the scene that ends up turning a few people out, where they go, this is lesser, because it is really bizarre. Even for them, it's kind of out there. But
the elephant slowly making his way down the hall with the tray.
And it's not the worst looking creature mask ever. It's, did you wander off a Star Wars set to come over here?
Yeah, I thought the Henson people were involved or something, because the moving cartoon comes horrifyingly close to the camera.
And then there's some random, just some gas blowing out the background behind them. And
like we're in a manor home, but somehow we're in a hallway that's like a steam tunnel. Like, well, I don't know who wrote that one.
I was going to say, who wrote this one? Was this like, okay, we have all these random pieces. What do? Put them together and let's make a stew. All right.
The arms alone, Terry Jones. like talk about breaking the fourth wall. He's the, obviously they loved their mechanics, because not only did we get the ball squeezing specter of death at the end, but he's really selling the fingers right to the camera.
Yeah.
I should have looked up the mechanical effects engineer. I'm a terrible podcast.
I know. And was it the same? Was it like, did they just repurpose for the skeleton hands at the end?
I have no idea. Again,
I on that thing. It might be.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it probably was, right? Like, we've got this. I wonder.
How else do we use it?
Yeah, I wonder if they had filmed the death scene first and went, well, now what do we do with these? I got an idea. That's your idea.
Yeah. Can we make the arm a little longer and bend it? Yeah. And then,
Can we put another elbow in?
This scene is missing. It's some kind of David Bowie freak somewhere. Can we have some Stardust come in?
With spigots over his nipples. It's weird and wonderful. But I do remember looking at that image in a magazine and going, what the fuck is this? I mean, I was
my Python. Yeah.
I'm like, what? I hadn't seen the movie. I'm like, I don't know what this. I thought it was a scene from Rocky Horror Picture Show. And so when I finally saw the movie, I was like, wait, what is this? Like, where was that?
Right.
Oh, but when it hits hard.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Taking home those arms.
Oh yeah, I mean, I hope Jones walked around the village in those late at night.
You bury me with those things.
Be buried in them. They can't close the coffin lids. It's death proof.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's going to do it for us here at Midnight Viewing Anthologies Attack. Boy, any you want to sum up your thoughts on meaning of life here? You got any closing remarks? Nah, we said it all. But I do want to ask you to tell our listeners once again how they can get a hold of all of your fucking fantastic stuff. Your book. Oh,
my goodness.
You got videos out there. You got a website.
All sorts of stuff.
Give me your socials.
All the socials. Yeah, well, head on over to Amazon. That's the best place to go. You get The Last of the Giant Fire Lizards out on ebook, paperback, and audiobook. You can also check out a little bit more if you want to learn a bit more about the dragon. I'm on Facebook at Giant Fire Lizards. The website is giant-lizards.com. And there you go. Easy enough to track it down.
Everybody fucking head on over there right now and do yourself a favor and read. You don't even have to read. You can just listen to it. You can be lazy. We're all lazy these days. You're listening to this right now. I'm going to be listening to something later. I'm going to be listening to that book, motherfuckers. Last Fire Lizards, baby. All right. For Antonio, I'm going to speak for him. I want to say thank you all for joining us here at Midnight Viewing. Until next time. Midnight Viewing Anthologies Attack is a proud member of Weirding Way Media. Our theme song was composed by HP. If you want to hear these episodes early and commercial-free, go to patreon.com/Father Malone. Membership will also get you exclusive bonus content not available in the regular stream. But if you just like the show and want to help, please share with your friends and give us a 5-star rating on your podcatcher of choice. Till next time.